Welcome to the ACSA Campus Tour, where on Tuesdays we take you to another school community and talk to a district administrator about the successes and challenges they are experiencing during this COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us today is the superintendent from the Nevada City School District, Monica Daugherty. Monica, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
First day of school, you open up this year in a hybrid model and a distance learning model. That's the first day of school. On the second day of school, mandatory evacuations and evacuation warnings for the Jones fire. So tell me, pandemic-wise and then fire-wise, the experience for your students and your parents and your staff so far this year.
Well, any district will understand what I'm going to share, and that is, just the nervousness and fear and discomfort and uncertainty that everyone faced with opening school with any model, because everything's so new and so different, especially opening in person. There was a lot of fear, a lot of nerves, and we had spent a lot of time in different committees and sharing our safety plans and really, making sure everyone felt comfortable with returning staff, families, students. So we open, we have an awesome first day, see kids in person. Everyone's so excited to be there, all dressed up for the first day of school. And then the second day, we have evacuation warnings and evacuation orders. And that just brought everyone's fear, sky high. So we did close school then 3 days in a row. Even though, our school wasn't directly impacted, about 12,000 families were. And so that was just, it stirred everything up. It was quite a way to start the school year.
So with fires come power shutoffs in some areas. That creates the need to have an alternative learning plan, in addition to the alternative learning plan that you guys had to come up with for the hybrid model and for the distance learning model. So in those few days that you had to work through these fire evacuations and the evacuation warnings, how did that need to shift, that alternative learning plan, to make sure you were supporting the students?
Well, we had already built in extra emergency closure days into our calendar because last year we faced a lot of shutoffs and missed a lot of days of school. But right out of the gate, we already used 3 of the 4 days. So we knew we needed to look at a different way of doing things. And then in addition, to our surprise, we ended up on the emergency downtown power grid. So we were going to have power, which is not a reason to close school and get a waiver. So we were going to need to stay open even though our families didn't have power, which really complicated things. So we decided to work with our staff. We had a professional development day and we had the staff work together and really come up with ways to keep school going, even though our campus was closed and even though there might not be power, because we had to figure out and solve the need for daily live interaction. So we worked with the teachers, came up with some ways to do that. We reached out to families, explained what we were doing and why we were doing it. There was lots of support. So some teachers did packets they sent home, and like for kindergarten, it's emergency day 1, emergency day 2, with a lot of work. And then they would hold their Google Meets and track who was able to attend. We encouraged families to use their phone for a hotspot if they could. And then the families that couldn't log into the Meet, we did conference calls, individual calls, emails, whatever we needed to try to make it a learning day and also just keep the continuity of learning. We have really found out, families have shared that this normalcy of just kids going to school every day is really helping families, even though the way it's happening is, requires a lot from families. So we're just trying to keep that flow going. And we did use our first packet day recently. So it was really nice to have that and not have to close school.
Well, now we're in November, so let's talk about best practices to get from the beginning of the school year to now, not just with facilities and technology, but also for social, emotional wellness for your entire school community and yourself as well. Tell me about how you have moved the district and yourself through this tough time.
Well, I'm going to start all the way back. I'm going to answer that starting in March because that's when everything shifted for everybody. And I think out of the gate, I knew communication and just hearing, listening, hearing voices, giving opportunities for everyone to share their thoughts was really, really important. So by June, we had created a large committee, and then off of that, 7 subcommittees, and one of them was social emotional wellness for both staff and students. And those committees were just so vital because people always think of things that you don't think of. They have a different lens, and when you pull all those ideas together, they're going to be better than anything you can come up with. So that voice was really important, and then it continues to be important. We, listen to our stakeholders, whether it be families or staff. So some little examples, I meet with my union negotiators informally every Wednesday morning at 7:30, and we just have a chat as to, what's the pulse out there? How are people feeling? Just to try to really make sure we're proactive and doing the best we can for everyone, including our staff. I think the other thing I've learned that's really important is not to make it all rosy. I mean, there are bumps and there have been challenges, and admitting those and discussing those and owning those is really important, because then people know you're real and, you're being honest with what's happening. So that's been really an important lesson I've learned. And then we just have tried to really not let go of the things that are easy to let go when you're so swamped and buried in your work. So for example, last week at our board meeting, we did a video appreciation of our staff. It was a 9-minute video. We took clips from our distance learning classrooms. We took clips from the hybrid classrooms, from staff prepping materials, from our custodians, whoever, and just did a little appreciation video for all the effort that has been put in for this year. So that's kind of how we got to where we are right now.
Monica Daugherty, Superintendent, Nevada City School District. Monica, thanks so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you, folks, for joining us here on the ACSA Campus Tour. Remember, on Tuesdays, we take you up and down the state to talk with a school administrator about the successes and challenges during this COVID-19 pandemic. That comes your way Tuesdays here on the ACSA Campus Tour.